several other automobiles and motorcycles.
So the Fiat or Citroen was just one of them?
Right, and it seems to me credible that, I don't think that they're wrong on the fact that it was a Fiat. I think the level of forensic testing that's been done, and...
Yeah, the Citroen came up much later.
Yeah,
right,
and
there were other cars involved.
Yeah.
I think as I recall, Trevor Rees-Jones does remember that there was a white car that was trailing the Mercedes.
Then how did it get in front?
Didn't it come round the other way?
Well, I think that what we don't know, at least what I don't know, is what precisely happened in that, say, 15, 30-second period, that final stretch of the road along the Seine River. Clearly a number of other cars were right on the tail of the Mercedes. There's one eyewitness account by Francois Levy saying that a car sped by the Mercedes, cut in front of it, jammed on its brakes, and might have been... This may have been the Fiat. I mean, those details are simply not, to my knowledge, fully known. But there are many transparent reports of people who saw different things. There were a lot of closed-circuit TV footage taken, which the French police seem to believe that every closed-circuit TV in central Paris was not functioning during that 10-minute period.
That is one of the most suspicious things of all time, because it was the only time in the whole history of the traffic system in Paris that all 28
weren't
video traffic controls were not working.
Right.
From the time they left the Ritz, which is the last thing we got, there are 3 in the tunnel itself that were not working. They were not functioning. They had not functioned for about 20 minutes before they left the Ritz.
Right.
Funnily enough also, and I've researched this extremely well, there was tremendous traffic interference on radios. The radios were cut out entirely.
A kind of white noise on radios, is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Sound interference.
Yeah. No, it was cut out.
Just nothing?
Yeah. My actual source was a radio buff, a voyeur, who was actually sitting under the Eiffel Tower, and he listens into the police or whatever, and all of a sudden, just at about 2 minutes before the crash, all radio
was cut
stopped.
out.
Now that is highly suspicious, and the police have not answered it. I've asked them in Paris, and I've asked them in this country, and I've asked the Fayad family, and no one has got an answer for that.
We're also forgetting the fact that the car itself was broken into about 4 weeks beforehand, and, you know, my theory being MI6 or whatever, super intelligent people, whatever, getting together.
Super establishment,
yeah, super establishment. Basically,
it's not attributed
remote control.
It may not be justifiably.
But remote control, you know, there was one chap, it was the chap who survived, basically his seatbelt was on, and they're actually
He didn't put it on until after the Place de la Concorde, which is about approximately 50 seconds before the tunnel.
Right, well, the seatbelts could easily, you know, remote control could easily sort of turn them, take them off whilst they're crashing.
Because that particular Mercedes is digitally controlled.
Yeah.
And you could have sat on the banks.
They all had their seatbelts on, but then remote controlled, they were taken off, except for Trevor Rees-Jones's, which was then remote controlled put on.
Yes. Well, no, I don't know about remote control to put it on. I don't know if that could be...
You could control the steering, you could control the brakes, you could control from a computerised station.
So why was Trevor Rees-Jones allowed to survive?
Because he put his seatbelt on.
And also, going back to your mental sort of brainwashing number, couldn't he have perhaps been the plant, if you like? I mean, it's awful to say it. You know, without him knowing, his mind could have perhaps been affected.
Exactly.
Because they're trained to take it off. In an accident, someone who's a bodyguard is actually trained to take theirs off, not to put it on. And he is SAS, ex-SAS.
That's true, ex-SAS, you know? But the question is, why were they still on the wrong road? I mean, they should have been on the road going above the Armour underpass, turning up George V Avenue, but they were actually chaperoned under the underpass by whom?
The best explanation I've heard is that, I mean, remember that the Mercedes was being chased. There were a couple of vehicles and motorcycles, and one could presume it was predominantly the paparazzi, but until we know who was driving the Fiat, why it is that it disappeared from the face of the earth.
What else do we know about the Fiat? We know that there was a big dog in the Fiat, don't we?
No, we don't.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Someone from a block of flats outside the tunnel said that they thought there was a dog in there. I don't think
people driving in another car.
Because I've got to say that filled me with some doubt. Because I thought if you're going to assassinate somebody, you don't take a big dog with you because dogs are unpredictable. They might jump on you when you're in the tunnel.
If we're trying to argue about how it was done, and if in fact the Fiat Uno, the white Fiat Uno, was involved, then it could be significant that it could have been done by ray gun, or it could have been done by all sorts of things. In which case, a dog would be insignificant. It would look like a dog, or it would be made to look like a dog, or whatever.
So it was a kind of non-dog thing.
Well, I personally don't think that anyone out on an assassination plot would take a dog with them.
Well, that's what I think, because they're unpredictable.
Both the eyewitness accounts of 2 or 3 people who seem to have been close to the scene seconds before the crash. This British Secretary Brenda Wells, who gave some statements both to the French police and to the media shortly after the crash. The forensic tests on the car have shown some interesting things. Number one, the confirmation, and I think they're fairly specific about the fact that it was a Fiat Uno,
white,
probably manufactured between 1984 and 87. It was a turbo model, which is, by the way, faster and has a greater acceleration than the Mercedes. People might tend to just automatically assume that a Fiat up against a Mercedes is going to be a slower, smaller, less powerful car. Now, as I understand it, there's also been questions raised by some of the medical tests and the forensic tests suggesting that the airbags on the Mercedes had detonated prior to the main crash head-on impact. Again, I think that there's lots and lots of details, eyewitness information that is out there and is being suppressed. I mean, I've spoken to several witnesses who were horrified at the treatment that they received from the French after the fact. The French want this to be a garden variety.
I don't think it's just the French.
Driving.
You keep saying the French. I'm sorry, I think it's Big Brother, and that's a conglomerate of individuals from all the power. Well, I think it's got to do with the arms race. I mean, you know, we make money. You know, this country makes money, doesn't it? Selling arms to the Arab states to fight the Israelis.
Yeah. It's all oil and
and that's the thing. Now, Diana, in her naivety, if you like, and they tried to suggest that she was very naive with all this landmines number.
Not really.
But unfortunately, she's also in a very powerful position without her realising it.
Right.
I think motive is a very important thing to try and establish.
Well, if you learn anything from watching JFK, it's what Donald Sutherland said, it's not the who or the how, but the why.
Yeah, exactly. And what got me intrigued in all of this in the first place, really, was that I'm an investigative journalist, and over the years I've built up a few sources and contacts within the intelligence community. Now, exactly 1 week prior to this event, on the 23rd of August last year, I received some information that led me to believe, shall we say, that this very event was about to happen within a very short period of time. So I've been able to, over the past months, for myself anyway, corroborate and substantiate that information.
Are you able to tell us what it is?
I'm reluctant to talk too much about it on a programme like this because I can't...
You could always talk about it in broad strokes.
Well, that's what I am talking about, it in very broad strokes.
Slightly narrower strokes.
Well, one of my intelligence sources intimated that this very incident was about to happen, and the reasons given were both political and constitutional. They were, for my information, was that there was a link between the US and Britain. There was a kind of a joint operation at some level somewhere, I don't know what level, but there was CIA and MI6 involvement. Now, the American involvement largely was, which is why I jumped in there, to do with the landmines issue. Not just the landmines issue, but Diana, remember, was someone very much like JFK and like Martin Luther King. She was one of those very rare people, whatever you thought about her, she had a tremendous charisma. She could mobilize public and national opinion like that.
And she opened her mouth.
And well, yeah, I think that frightens a lot of people in certain areas. I mean, we must realize the kind of conspiracy, the kind of people that Diana was confronting by standing up and making a stand on the landmines issue. And there's a lot of information to say that she may be moving on to other issues.